Okay, guys, good evening. And I guess we can start now. Those will join, they can join. And okay, so greetings, I'm Varun, and we are all here for the 3D session, as you might know. And let's just begin by talking about what is 3D. It's like 3D modeling is when you visualize something in 2D and then give it that artistic touch and create it and convert it to a 3D model by using some sort of software. It can be Maya, it can be 3D Studio Max, it can be Blender for that matter. And I use Blender because I prefer that interface anyhow. And yeah, other than that, let me show you one thing. Just a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is my ArtStation profile. Just a second. Yeah. Yep. So this is my ArtStation profile, as you can see. And it's like when you are learning 3D, you can create your own portfolio. Like, for example, ArtStation, or maybe you can have your own Instagram page and upload your renders and everything there. You can also use Sketchfab. Sketchfab is the store that you can use. Leave it, doesn't matter. Sketchfab is the store that you can use for uploading your models directly, and you can just view them or like make them paid, make them free, whatever you want. It's all about you and it's all about how you do stuff. And these are some of the renders I have made recently using Blender and at times Substance Painter. This is the concept Batmobile that I was using. And yeah, this is the static renders. Just a second, who is it? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so just a static render, as you can see, of the Batmobile concept. All of this was done in Blender. I'll just show the project file in a minute. What else was there? This was a logo that I made. And this is the spaceship that I made in Blender, but I rendered in, sorry, textured and rendered in Substance Painter. This is, I guess, the hallway I made in Blender. So these are some of the examples you can see. This is a sci-fi rifle I made in Blender. So you might be having some sort of idea right now what Blender is, and or maybe you're totally confused. It's okay. Let me just begin by showing you what Blender is. So when you'll open Blender for the first time, this is how it will look. This is the usual intro window of Blender. And as you can see, I'm using version 2.93. It's written over here. And all of this is the layout that Blender comes up with. These are my recent files. I'll just show you in a minute. And this is the layout. You can navigate easily, no issues, using middle mouse to just hold middle mouse and navigate the way you want. If you have numpad, like if you're using a standard keyboard on your desktop, it's fine. But if you have a laptop, you may or may not have numpad. But if you have a numpad, then you can press 1 for this front view, 3 for side view, 7 for top view, as you can see. There are 3 orientations we can use, and these are the tools. Like if you are a beginner, these tools will be very helpful for you because you can just directly click and like do this. As you can see, this is a move tool. And like when you are, much more intermediate in the process, you may not even need any of these. You'll just need your shortcuts. Let me see if I can screencast these. Where is it? Where is it? Just a second. Anyways, so this is G. You have to press G for moving. Like every sort of, what do we say? Every action has its own shortcut, right? Because that's how softwares work. Every action that you will see will have a shortcuts of his own. Screencast. Use Blender. Just a second. I don't even remember where it is at this point. Yeah, we have to enable add-on. Okay, so let's just go into the preference menu first. It is also a big thing on its own. So when you when you'll install Blender, it will of course detect every hardware that you're running right now. So as you can see, it's saying RTX 3070 and Ryzen 5. So this is my CPU and GPU combined, and I have turned on optics because optics is a better render when it comes to, for example, ray tracing or maybe screen space ambient occlusion and all these sorts of stuff. Okay, so CUDA is like the basic form of calculation when you're rendering something, and OpenCL is even lower than that, but it's like kind of fast but not a good result overall. So I prefer to use optics, and these are your settings. As you can see, undo steps and memory limit, they're like pretty basic, so you don't even have to think about it. Themes, you can even change whatever you want, the look of it, like you can totally change Blender the way you want. It's open source, as we all know. You can download it from blender.org, and yeah, that's it. The important part here is add-ons. So as you can see, these are the add-ons section. Some of them I have are paid add-ons, and some of them are free add-ons, like curve tools, extra objects, and FPX format, STL format, GLTF. These are all of the free add-ons that come in Blender. You can just click and enable them. Like for example, lighting, dynamic sky. Now it's enabled and now it's disabled. Okay, and decal machine, this is also a paid add-on, and mesh machine is paid, machine tools is free. Some things like you can easily install any free add-on. You just have to download the zip file, and you'll have to go here, install, and just find your zip file and install it in Blender. If there is, no, there isn't. Anyways, so as you can see, this is our basic default cube. This is our rotate tool. So you have X, Y, and Z axis, simple geometry. The red axis is X and the green one is Y and the blue is Z. So as you can see, I'm rotating it on X right now. And if I leave it, I can just click here and I can rotate it on Y, I can rotate it on Z. And of course, if you don't want to do that, just Control Z, whatever. And you can just press R. So this is now free rotation, totally free, independent of any axis. If I press R and Z, there is this blue line you might be able to see in the middle. That is denoting that it is Z axis. And if I press R and X on X axis, the red line shows you that. And RY is on the Y axis. The green line is telling you that. What else do we have? Scale. Yeah, you can click on here. This is the scale button, and you can just like scale it on X axis or scale it on Y axis or scale it on Z axis. I mean, these tools, the ones that are here, they are pretty much easy to use. You may not even have to think anything else. They are just very bare bones, very basic. And once you get the hang of it, you'll of course use shortcuts, right? So if I use S, I can just scale it uniformly, as you can see. If I use SX, I can do it on this. If I use SY, I can do it on Y. SZ, I can do it on Z. Simple, right? This we have transform. Basically, this is for like the overall stuff, as you can see. All of the gizmos are here: rotation, scale, and movement. You don't need them because you can use R, S, and R for rotate, S for scale, and G to move. And one more, like, small shortcut, if you are using G, this is a free transform, right? But if I press middle mouse and try to move my mouse onto the Y direction, so I can move it on Y. So it will pin itself onto the Y axis. And if I leave it, if I press G, and if I move my mouse to the X axis, it will snap it and we'll only move to X. Similarly with Z. Yeah, as you can see. So also there is one more transform thing you might want to do. Just in case if you want to scale, let's suppose, but you want to eliminate one axis. Like I want to scale this object on X and Y, but not on Z. So I can use Shift key to eliminate that particular axis. I'll press S. So S will do the normal scaling, but if I do S and Shift Z, so as you can see, the red and the green lines are active, denoting us that we are scaling in X and Y, but not in Z. So the Z won't change. As you can see, Z won't change. You can do S Shift Z. Now it will give you a clearer picture. You can just eliminate any axis you want. You can maybe even move it, like G Shift Z. So I'm just moving on this XY plane. It's like basic simple geometry, right? X axis, Y axis, and Z axis. So you just have to do it in the respective plane if there is something you want to do. And this is the annotate tool. You can just draw whatever you want. Like maybe I want to say this has to be the A point, or maybe this has to be the B point, like that, something like that. And I can press Control and it will be the eraser. This annotate tool is like for, drawing and saying, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. And you can even later convert this annotation, like I can convert this to a mesh. It is a different process, but let's not go there right now. And this is the measure tool, add cube. This is like for adding basic cube. You may not need it because we have a better version of that. If you're in object mode, you can press Shift A and you can see this add menu. You can add whatever mesh you want. You can add a quad sphere. As you can see, you can add, maybe you want a plane, and you can maybe add a UV sphere. It is different. Like UV sphere is a bit different than quad sphere because it's like less polygon overall. And you can add maybe an icosphere. It is an interesting shape, right? Anyways, and let's move to cylinder, very useful. And along with that, yeah, cone, torus, and monkey grid. Okay, these are some complex objects. Let me just, yeah, you can press X to delete anything you want. Maybe it's an object, it's a face, it's an edge. I'll get back to it. Faces and edges. If I press Shift A and if I add, let's suppose a cylinder, it's here, right? And if I take it here, there is this prompt here, okay, this move tool. It is telling me how much I have moved on X, on Y, on Z, what's my orientation, is it global, is it local, right? So, but if I do this, Shift A, and then if I add a cylinder, you can see this comes up, add cylinder. So you can even alter whatever you want, like the properties of the cylinder, you can just easily alter it. I can increase the number of vertices. As you can see, the vertices are now a lot more than they were initially. They were initially 32 and now they are 128, right? There is a lot of things you can do in Blender and a lot of tools and customization. It's just in front of you, like there. You just have to look carefully and yeah, there it is. Okay, I can delete all of them. There's no need for them. I can just add a basic cube here just to tell you. As you can see now, because I was using that menu, Blender remembers that, okay, I was using the bottom left menu and it will automatically open it when I add something. And now if I add a cylinder, it will show me the data. See, cylinder 123, and it added 123 vertices because that was what I used last time. So Blender has this sort of thing built onto it that it will remember what you did last time and it will try to just duplicate it next time you use it. Of course, you can change it. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to delete it because it's not needed. Let's go to a different mode. I'll select my cube. And before that, this is the collection. On your right hand, this is the collection section, the scene collection, whatever it's being displayed right now. This cube is a part of this collection. And don't just think about mesh, rig, or collision. They are totally, totally different. Okay, so this is our collection and this is our cube. So if I disable this, I won't be able to see it. It's very simple. You can see there's an eye. And if you hover over anything, like literally anything in Blender, just hover over it and it will tell you what its function is. As you can see, if I hover over this eye, it will say temporarily hide in viewport. Cool, fair enough. And this is the render button. Now we'll get back to rendering soon. Now let me just switch to edit mode. There are so many modes, as you can see: edit mode, sculpt mode, vertex paint, weight paint, texture paint. You can do a lot of stuff in Blender easily. And either you can go to edit mode by going like here, edit mode, or you can just hold tab and go to edit mode. Simple as that. So this is how we edit our geometry in Blender. This is a vertex. We all know what a vertex is, basic maths. And I can select this vertex because right now I'm in vertex select mode. There is edge select mode too, and there is face select mode too. And by the name, if you'll click on 2, edge select mode, basically you can press 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3 for Not the numpad 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, 3 above your keys, like alphabet keys, those 1, 2, 3. So if I press 2, I can now grab an edge and I can press G to move it easily. I can press R to rotate it and I can press S to scale it the way I want. Cool, right? Same as with face. I can now face comprises of like maybe 3 edges or 4 edges or 5 edges. Like it can go to a big extent, but minimum it will comprise of 3 because 2 won't make it a proper face. So this is a face. As you can see, I can now press G and move it. I can press R to rotate it the way I want. Again, we can rotate it to any particular axis, X, Y, and Z. And you're not bound. You can just switch the axis anytime. Right now it's Z, okay? You can press Y and you can press X. It will just change it for you. Very simple. Now let's get over to these. Again, move, rotate, scale, transform, annotate. These are like totally same. The exact same functions we just... Okay, someone is joining in. The exact same functions we saw in edit object mode, they are here too, because you never know when you want to rotate something or when you want to scale something, right? Now we have some different functions here, like some different tools. This is extrude region, extrude freely or along an axis. If I click on this, I can extrude this. We all know what extrusion is. That is, something is coming out of something, like something extends from something is called extrusion. And as you can see, this is like an easy tool. If you don't want to use the shortcuts, you can just use these tools and they'll have some sort of helper icon to tell you what and how things will be. But if I press Ctrl Z and if I press on this, I can press E to extrude. And right now it's extruding in Z axis because that's how it can go up, right? As you can see here. So we have another face and the geometry of cube has been changed, right? It's not what it was. Its scale has changed. Its dimensions has changed. It's totally different right now, right? But if I tell you that I can press this and I can take this inside, like on negative Z axis, I'll have to drag my mouse downwards. Okay, as you can see, extrusion went down. The overall dimensions of the cube, yes, they are still same, but if you count every face and edge here, no, it's not the same. And as you can see, you can even go inside. Like you can just go inside this cube and see what's happening. This is a very, very important thing to do when you are making intricate models and you want to see, okay, how it went and everything. So yeah, right now I know I'm working all about the cube, but I'll just show you everything in a moment. Now we have inset faces. You can select any. Okay. So yeah, you can select any face you want and you can use this inset faces. The shortcut is I key. They even say the shortcut I. Don't go on that shift space bar. It's just for the second setting. You can press I. Let me press I here and it will inset. That's how it will go. And now we have a face inside of a face. And these are the edges. Because if they are not present, the geometry will be distorted. And you don't want your geometry to, be distorted in any way. It's not the end of the world, of course, but you can just fix it by maybe adding more edges, maybe adding more vertices, or even increasing the polygons in the geometry overall. You can increase anything you want in the geometry just to prevent the geometry from tearing up. Okay. But what happens if I delete this edge? Can I delete this edge? Yes, I can. I have to press X and the delete menu comes up. This comes up in edit mode. You can delete the vertices. There are 2 vertices, right? 1 and 2. So you can vertices, edges, and faces, the corresponding faces, and you can dissolve them. The difference between dissolving and deleting is that dissolving is going to merge the corresponding stuff. Like your geometry won't totally be destroyed. It will be in some ways maybe dissolved because that's how the name is, dissolve. So what happens if I delete this edge? As you can see, the whole face went away. Why? Because there was nothing to support this face. This whole Where's the annotate? Yeah. This whole area was being held by this edge. And if it's not there, how that face will exist, right? Simple. So let me get back to it. Delete this drawing, we don't need it. If I press X and I use dissolve edge, as you can see, this face stayed, but to maintain the structure of our geometry, Blender created this edge. This was not there if you remember. Let me do Control Z and Control Shift Z, because Control Z is like going backwards, Control Shift Z is going forward. You might know that. So you can see the difference. This edge is here. Why? Because Blender wanted to save this geometry. Okay, now moving along, we have bevel. Very, very important tool, bevel. You'll have to select one particular edge for that. This is the edge. I'm not using the B. I'll use the shortcut B key. You have to press B and you are in bevel mode. I'm sorry, Control B. Yeah. So this is bevel. You have seen, if you'll look closely to hard surface objects, like maybe a big metal container or a grill that has those straight lines in it, if you look at the edges closely, they are not super sharp, okay? They'll look sharp, but they are not super sharp. They have some sort of bevel onto them. And that's how this bevel works, like very small bevel and a very big bevel. Of course, bevel will also alter the geometry. As you can see, this third edge here, I mean, this edge here and this edge here, of course, it's altering the geometry, but there's nothing we can do because that's how bevel works. And this is the bevel menu. You can just adjust the width here. You can adjust the segments, how much of bevel you want. You can adjust the shape. So you can just adjust the shape, adjust the segments, whatever you want. And let me go to 3. You can see now this whole structure is curvy because we have beveled it. And if I do this, if I go on to 3, and if I do this Control B, see, I can scroll up to add and scroll down to decrease the amount of bevel I want. If you want such, sharp angle, of course, you don't have to bevel more. But if you want very smooth curves, you can do this, or you can even add more. So much of bevel, and it's totally smooth, right? As you can see, it's totally smooth. I know the geometry is twitching from this part, but this curve is totally smooth. Moving on, we have loop cut. What loop cut does, it's very, very, very handy when you're modeling. I can press Control R and I can add a loop. See, now there is a loop that is cutting right through my geometry, and you can see the vertices. See, this vertex, they are present. Now this geometry has been deformed by this loop. And why you might use it, like if you want some sort of extra supporting edges, like you saw in that case, right? I deleted this edge and whole face went over. But if there was more geometry here, let's suppose here or maybe here, like if there were one edge here and one edge here, or maybe here or here, and if I had deleted this edge, not a lot would have happened because there was a lot of support for this face. But since there wasn't any support for that edge, it went over, as you see, totally empty face. Loop cut is very important because, let me see. Now, as you can see, the loop is now adjusting according to the geometry. And again, I can use scroll up to add more loops and scroll down to decrease. You can have one minimum and I don't know how many, a lot of them. And this, now the edge is sliding, as you can see. The loop cut tool is very smart. It is going to adjust itself according to the geometry that you have just created. As you can see, the edge is sliding now. It is elongating here, but it is not elongating here because that's how the geometry is. You can do this thing manually if you want, the sliding part that I just showed you, because that is the this tool, edge slide, as you can see. I was going to get to it, but we can do it right now. For edge slide, either you will select it this way, right? Or you can just double tap G. Now it is sliding. You can see that yellow line again. It is sliding and it is altering the edge, as you can see, right? Okay, so moving on, we have knife tool, another handy. Like loop cut will work in almost 90% of your cases, given you haven't destroyed the geometry totally. But knife tool will work on like 100% cases. Why? Because it is versatile. It can do a lot more than you think. I can make a cut from here. I can make a cut from here. How? I just have to press left click. Wait. Yeah, so I can make a loop cut here. I just have to select this vertex, press left click, and then just take my mouse wherever I want. If I want a cut till here, as you can see, this green dot, green square becomes red because I'm hovering over a vertex. And if I press left click here, as you can see, it will give me a display. Okay, you are making this. This is the type of operation you have done. And if I'm good with it, I can press spacebar. And if I'm not, I can continue. Right now I'm good with it. So I'll press spacebar and this cut is made. And this face was mandatory because 1, 2, and 3, three vertices and 3 edges, they made one face. This is a quad because of 1, 2, 3, 4, four vertices. I'm sorry. This is like an automated process. Now you have much more faces, much more edges, and as you can see, this vertex and this vertex, they are very close, and this vertex is common to both of them. So like in some operations that this might be a bit of a challenge to work with if you are beveling, if you are subdividing the geometry and other operations. Okay, like just a heads up, that's all. We have polybuild, it's totally not used. Spin, you can just extrude them. Smooth out, it's not needed right now, you can just auto smooth it. Shrink and shear and rip region. Let me show you what shear can do. If I press this, shear is just moving it. See, we all know the term shear. We might have read it in physics. Shearing is just, distorting in some ways when it's not in its right place. Shear is just moving. And if I do, sorry, this was shrink, I'm sorry. This is shear. It's not moving, right? As you can see, it's not doing anything. Why? Because it's not in a region. So this is like a heads up that not every tool will work on everything. Maybe you'll have to select a bunch of vertices. Maybe you'll have to select a bunch of edges. As you can see, it automatically selected those edges. Maybe you'll have to select a bunch of faces for this shear to work. You don't know, right? This is shear. Shear, right? Yeah, shear, sorry. I can just move it. Because it's not useful, or it may not sound that useful right now, because it's actually is not. You don't get to use these tools that much. Again, if you are good enough in Blender, you'll just use your shortcuts. And I can rotate on X, I can rotate on Y, I can rotate it on Z. As you can see, if you're looking carefully, this is what was happening in shear, because I was selecting the Z axis on shear and I was moving it here and there. So what shear can do, I can do the same by pressing R on Z axis, R and Z. So every tool that you see has an alternate somewhere built inside Blender. You may not be able to see it directly, but yeah, it exists. And of course, it will help you in some way. This is the rip region. Let me select just one face for that. I can just press it and cannot select it. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it's not doing that. Oh, sorry, a vertex. Yeah, okay. So as you can see, we just learned that this tool rip region works only on vertices. And as you can see, it just destroyed this thing. Like it is dissecting every vertex that it can. You're selecting one and it is dissecting it. Now there is uh, no more than 2 vertices here, because like, okay, let me tell you what was happening here. When I made this edge, there was more than one vertex here. So there were 2. So that's what rip region did. You'll just hover over it and it will destroy this, as you can see. When I clicked it just a moment ago, nothing happened. But now when I clicked on rip region, it just ripped that vertex apart, because that's what it is. And there is an opposite for this. What you want to do is go here and maybe enable auto merge. And if I do this, see, because I enabled auto merge, the vertex that were like very, 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 very close, they merged themselves. Why it might be useful? Because whenever you're doing any sort of operation, there must be some vertices that were left and you did not notice, and now they are there and they are now bugging your whole modeling experience. So auto merge is very helpful. And especially like just I told you, edge slide, you can use edge slide on vertex and edges as well. So like this vertex, I'll press double G and I can take it here. And since auto merge is on, I'll press double G again and now it is 1. Now this vertex is supporting this edge, this, and this. It's totally like 1. I can again use rip region to remove it, make it individual, but there's no point in doing that. But if auto merge here, it was not enabled. If I press double G, see, it's there, right? The orange line is here, but it's not here. Why? Because this vertex is still here. And if I zoom in, sorry, if I zoom in, you'll be able to see that this is here. It's hidden because it's on lying on this vertex. So auto merge will help you. Now this is one vertex and we are good to go. Yeah, one more thing. You can press 1 for front view, 3 for side view, and 7 for top view, as I told you, but you can press 5 for orthographic view. Now, orthographic view may not look that different. Like, as you can see, this is the orthographic view. Now, what is orthographic? You just cannot go inside the geometry. No matter how much I'll try, I cannot go inside because orthographic will prevent you from going inside. It's like treating the geometry as a 2D representation. So you cannot just barge inside. You'll have to switch back from orthographic, switch back to normal, and then go inside. This is our geometry. Yeah, this is what it is looking from the inside. Okay, cool. Anything else? We have all these tabs that we can work in Blender. This is the layout tab. Layout and modeling are pretty much same. Modeling will just switch you to edit mode, and layout, you can do whatever you want. Sculpting is when you want to maybe let's say make models, human characters or alien characters or whatever you want. There are so many brushes in sculpting. The best procedure is to use a tablet. If you have a drawing tablet, you can use that, and sculpting will be a very good experience. With a mouse, it's a horrible experience. Let me show you what happens with clay. As you can see, something happened, right? Something happened. The cube got deformed. Why? Because there isn't much geometry here. The cube is helpless. There's not much of a, let's say polygons here. Now let me show you how I can do sculpting. Let's get UV sphere and then go to sculpting. And as you can see, this went down. And if I use, let's say, draw, it is coming out. Can you see it? Yeah, it is coming out. Let me enable cavity. I cannot. It is coming out. Right now, as you can see, these are the faces. You can see these rectangular and square things, right? They are your faces. Just like I told you, they are your faces. This is one face. Sorry, there's 3. This is one face. This is one face, and there are like these many faces right now. I don't know how many, but there are very few. They're not good for sculpting. So if you are thinking of sculpting, you should have many faces on it. And we can do maybe shade smooth. Oh, what happened? As you can see, the whole geometry went smooth because shadings is like a very tedious process. I'm not going to explain it, but shading is basically flattening out and then smoothing every edge and every face and every vertex here. So now if I go to sculpting, I can do something and you'll be able to see it. I'm doing it. I'm just hovering my mouse by clicking left click and using this draw button, and this thing came out. It's bulging out now. And if I use draw sharp, yeah, see, the shape is now distorted. There are other tools too. You can use smooth, you can use flatten. There's not geometry much enough because again, I told you there are not enough polygons here for sculpting to do perfectly. You need to subdivide it. I'll get into modifiers soon. I can grab this. This is the grab one bit. I can use thumb. As you can see now, it's distorting. See, because of course there is not much geometry here. Okay, moving on. We don't need this. We can add a basic cube again. UV editing, a very, very important aspect of modeling is UV editing. What is UV editing? If you will open your 3D model on a 2D surface, like basically opening it up on a plane, on a 2D plane. So this is gone. So this is my cube, and I select it all. And yeah, to select everything that is present in your scene, you press A. And to deselect, you press double A. I press A and it selects everything on the cube. And as you can see, let me select link. So this is one face. So UV editor is now telling me, okay, hey, this is the face you selected on the cube, and this is the face here on the UV. You can see, right? If I select this face, UV is telling me, okay, this is the face. If I select this one, okay, this is the face. So that's how you do. Whenever you are unwrapping your model, you might ask why we have to unwrap because of texturing. I'll get into it soon. Okay, so whenever you're UV unwrapping any object, any for that matter, you'll have to be careful that it is unwrapped properly, that there is no overlapping. What is overlapping? Okay, let me show you. This is overlapping. Now this face, and this is now overlapping. You may not see it here, and it may make no difference while you are modeling, but when you are texturing, it makes every difference here because this UV is now overlapping with this and this. So whatever you will apply on this, let's suppose you gave this green color, okay, and you gave this one red and this one blue. So what will happen is this area on this is green and this is also green because ye green tha and this was blue and this was red. So this is a conflict that you have made in your UV. You don't want that. So we'll just not let the UVs somehow overlap. Simple. You can overlap any. I'll show you more complex examples in a moment. Don't worry. This was a very, very simple example. Our default cube. It gets to texture painting. Okay. You can texture paint your object. Why? Because you can then send it to various softwares like Substance Painter for texturing, Substance Designer for creating your textures, or maybe a Marmoset toolbag, 3D Code. This helps by telling that, okay, this face has this color. This face has this texture set on it. Like I can pick whatever color I want, or I can color. Okay, right now I cannot because this whole geometry is having pink color, so it's already assigned and there is no point in removing it because you're not going to use it anyways. But if there were multiple objects in the scene, you can just hover over them and you can paint them. It's not much of a use. I don't use it personally because like texture painting is not that useful here. You can just do it in your own texturing software. Shading. Now here comes the visually important stuff. Shading is where you give your materials, your texture, you assign them, and then you see how they are looking up. See, this is my default cube and this is looking blank because it is white. What I can do right now, I can press and give it a material. And what is a material? A material is anything that you give an object that determines how it is looking visually. So now as you can see, I gave it a material and nothing happened because, well, I didn't change anything. But I can change it. Just a second. I can change this base color. Now, as you can see, it's black. I can make it red. I can make it green, blue, cyan, purple, yellow, whatever. Let's make it red right now. There are other settings too. All of these settings that you can see, they all come under one domain, and that is called PBR, physically based rendering, PBR rendering. And this is subsurface. This is basically used for like skin textures. If you look at your hand and if there is any light source around you, you can see that the top level of your skin, it always scatters some light. So that is like subsurface scattering, and subsurface is determined by that. You can use metallic and it faded off. Yeah. So you may not be able to see it right now, but it's very shiny. And I can make it like this. I can increase the roughness. So now the material is rough as well as metallic. But if I reduce my roughness to 0, as you can see, the object is 100% metallic, having a base color of red and reflecting everything it can see. Everything, anything. This is the Again, if I do this, as you can see now, it's a bit metallic, not much because the roughness is 0, but I increase the roughness to 1 and no reflection whatsoever, totally absorbing every light. Anisotropic, it's not much helpful. Basically, it's for fixing some sort of, transparency issues. I'm not going to go in that. Sheen is just, as you can see, coating, a very, very thin coating on the material. Let's just reduce it. Clear coat, see, clear coat. Nothing happens. Why? Because not every material is going to support clear coat totally. It's very complicated. IOR is your index of refraction. If you will increase it, or you will decrease it. Nothing will happen because we don't have Fresnel connected. So most of these settings, they might look very appealing, might look very interesting, but trust me, they are very, very situation dependent. This is transmission. See, now it is trying to reflect what's behind of it. Where is transmission? We have our windscreen on our vehicles, right? Cars and everything. So that windscreen is having high transmission value because it has to transmit any light that is coming through so that you can see, and like, it's like transparent in some ways. You can have emission. Let me increase roughness. You can have emission too. Where is emission? We're here. You can have, let's say, emitting this color. And now it's emitting. You won't be able to see it right now. If I switch to rendered view, I'd be able to see it. No, because there is no scene. But emission decides how much emission is happening right now. Like, it's in the name. It's nothing else. It's just how much color is being emitted right now by the object. And this is the strength. You can increase it or decrease it. Alpha relates to opacity in some ways, and it's basically the layering opacity of that channel. Normal is fake depth. I'll just show you an example. Don't worry, everything will be clear. Normal is fake depth. Clear coat normal is the normal for clear coat, and tangent is for basically telling which tangent is applied to which normal. And yeah, that's it. Let's go to animation. Animation tab, you can, if you have worked with Adobe After Effects, for example, or maybe HitFilm or DaVinci Resolve, you might know what a node-based and layer-based editor is. So this animation tab is a layer-based editor. I can move it. This is my basically the working area. This is the final area where I can see how the animation is being played. So if I, let's say I want to move this object, okay? I'll make a keyframe. How will I make a keyframe? This is the transform menu, because when you'll go to animation, it will automatically bring you to the object transform menu. Okay, here. So let's say I want to move it on X like that. So I'll press it to 0 back, and to animate anything, it's a very simple shortcut. Either you can press this dot, animate property. As you can see, you're hovering over it and it is telling you what it is, or you can press I. One and the same thing. Right now I'll press this. So a keyframe is added. You might know what a keyframe is when you want to change the property with respect to time. So that points, that basically those instances when you are changing the property, they are called keyframes. So if I take it from, let's say, 0 to 60, and I want to move it just like that, I can then press it again, and now this empty diamond will be filled, telling me that now the animation has been completed. So if I play, so you might think it's very slow. Let me just make it to 65. You might think this animation is very slow, right? It's very sluggish, and you don't know why animation is so sluggish right now. That's where your render settings come up, and your scene settings. They both play the important role. I'm sorry, I'm just fumbling over. This is the frame rate of a animation. The standard VFX that we all know, all those CG animations and CG graphics, they use 24 or maybe 28 at times to compensate. You can have or if you're using it for, let's say, a game, if you're making an animation for a game by using any asset, you can switch it to 60, you can switch it to 30, 59, whatever you want, according to what you think the best will be. If I switch it to 60, this animation will be very smooth. Because basically 60 frames equals 1 second. what is it? It is frame rate. How many frames have passed in 1 second? And now you are turning it to 60 frames per second. So there are total 65 frames. So it will take only 1 second to complete. But if I turn it to, let's say, 30, it will take 2 seconds to complete. So animation is always frame rate dependent. Okay. If you want to compensate, you'll have to either change your frame rate or maybe change the overall length of your animation, like how many frames I have. For example, if I want this animation to be 1 second, I'll of course have to drag all those keyframes back to 30. Let me show you. I'll pick these and I'll just use my left mouse button to drag them on 30. And now this animation will be 1 second. See, this part is 1 second. Again, so you'll have to adjust your animation if you're adjusting your frame rate. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You're fine with everything else. This is the frame, how many frames you want your animation to be. I can keep it 30, I can keep it 60. This is the aspect ratio. This is the resolution. Right now, my monitor is at 1920 by 1080. If your monitor is 4K, you can just enter 3840 by 2160. And this is the resolution. Right now, 100% means full resolution. I can change it to 200. So now it's basically twice 1080p. That will be approximately 4K. And you can change the aspect ratio pretty much. This is how you want your renders to be. And you can just change the format, BMP, PNG, JPEG, whatever you want, whatever image format suits you. I remember some of the DSC team asking me that how these renders come out. Okay, so they come out in JPEG or PNG. That's how you do it. If you want in PNG, you want JPEG, you want Targa. Targa is basically for texturing rather. TIFF and OpenEXR, whatever format you want. Also, you can render your animations like this: AVI JPEG, AVI RAW, and FFmpeg. But the thing is that we need super powerful machines for that to render all of your animations at once. So what we do is we extract individual frame of the animation and then we put it into the sequencer and then get our animation. Color depth, you might know, compression, how much you want your image to be compressed. And yeah, that's it. This is our rendering tab. This is now rendering in EEVEE. EEVEE is the legacy engine that Blender has, as you can see. Let me show you one more thing. If I rendering is done here in EEVEE, rendering at 64 samples, but you can change it to something else. This is cycles. This is the real-time sort of ray tracing render engine, you can say, as an alternate to what RTX might be. But this is just for ray tracing calculations and light bounces and path tracing, global illumination, everything. Radeon Pro Render, don't just think about it. It's from AMD, and you can add it if you want. You can add any render engine here, maybe from Maya, maybe from Octane, Cinema 4D. But let's switch it to Cycles. So now, Cycles will ask you, okay, how do you want to render it? You want to do it on CPU? You want to do it on GPU compute? I'll select GPU because I have a good GPU right now. I can select the render samples. What a sample is the pixel size, like a small pixel size that is inside a frame. So it's on 128 right now. So the samples will be very small and very big. But if I do it on 1024, let's suppose, so there's a lot of samples going on, and I can turn the viewport to maybe 128. Okay. And adaptive sampling, if you want basically samples to be more efficient when they are processing, but it's not needed because you'll use all of your time to render at times. Denoising is when you will denoise all those pixels. What am I talking about denoising? Let me show you. As you can see now, it is loading the kernels. Why? Because Cycles is pretty heavy and it takes some time to render all of your kernels, and then Cycles will render it the way it should be. And it happens with me because right now I'm using optics, just as I showed you in that preferences settings. Can I go to it right now? Yeah. System. This optics. So now these kernels are being rendered because of optics. If it was CUDA, nothing would have happened because CUDA is simpler than optics, like I told you in the beginning. And it happens with me whenever I make a new project in Blender. Of course, it will load all those kernels for the first time because using optics, if it were if it were CUDA or maybe CL, OpenCL, then none of this would be happening. So yeah, so you can see I'll have to wait for some time. That's how things are. And I can just maybe switch back to compositing, and then it will take some time out. And there we go. Blender is crashing, not responding because it's very heavy. Whenever you use cycles, it's very heavy. It's a lesson for everyone. If you are using 3D modeling, like just prepare everything beforehand, make some copies of your project, and then try to render it. Because if anything happens like this, maybe Blender shuts down and something is not perfect, then you won't have a loss. Your project won't be corrupted and it is gone, I guess. Yeah. Let me just restart it. Give me a minute. Let me restart Blender. And now since I'm restarting, I can show you my older project. Wait. Yeah. It's here now. Blender sharing screen. So this is now opened back up. Let me show you what all you can make. Let me go with easier stuff. This is a pistol, as you can comprehend. It is RE45 from Apex Legends. I was making it once, and then I had. Okay, someone is joining right now. It's pretty late. And as you can see, this is a pistol. Of course, it's not finished, it's not textured, but I was trying to make it. And this is very complex. So we'll understand how can we make such a thing. If I can open another project, yeah. Let me show you another complex object. The render that you saw on my ArtStation, the Batmobile, here it is. So it looks very plain, it looks very odd, right? Because, well, this is the object view. And I can go back to shading view, viewport shading, and if it will load all those textures that I have given this vehicle, that I have given this project, and it takes some time. And even now, if I try to render it, it will take time because, well, textures are being loaded, kernel is being loaded. So it's slowly loading every texture. As you can see, red is loaded, and there is this grill that is loading itself. So yeah, it takes some time to load every texture here. You can just switch back to it. And this is the animation that I made. Wait a minute. So you can see these lines, right? These lines are representing animation bones. It's a tedious project on itself, and since it's an introduction session, I'm not going to go much into how you implement bones and how you animate them, but oh, wait. Okay, so as you can see down here, if you can focus, shaders compilation. And this process is going on because Blender is right now compiling all those shaders, those textures, those normal maps, height maps, everything, because it wants to show you the preview. So it's better we are in object mode right now. And this is the animation that I made. You might have seen it in the ArtStation profile that I showed you. And this is all camera work. And if you can focus carefully, camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4. And if I jump out, there are 4 cameras in the scene. 1, 2, 3, sorry, 3 and 4. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting between cameras. This is the layout of animation. That's why I told you we just have to wait for the right moment and we can see this project in action. Okay, since we are here, let me take you to the animation section, the modeling one, take you to pose mode. Pose mode. So whenever you're working with bones, pose mode is where you should be. What happens is when you're using bones, this now bones don't look like that. Okay, if I have to add an armature, they will look very straightforward, like a rod or maybe like a cylinder, because they are bones. So I gave them this custom shape so that I can work with it. Now the bone is tied with every piece you see here of the vehicle, and you can see here on the collection area, I have renamed every object the way it should be. Spoiler, bat logo, bumper, and front tires, fenders, rear tire, tail light cover, right? And windshield. Now if I move this, I can move the whole car. And if I move this bone, I can move those steering wheels, basically. Not steering, but wheels. And you can, of course, add constraints here. As you can see, bone constraints. Blender will get complicated the moment you will, just grow in it. It will get complicated each and every day, and it's not easy to learn it. It's not that difficult either, but it takes some time. Okay, it takes some time and effort, and you'll have to go through tutorials. I learned through YouTube. I downloaded some tutorials, some free ones, reading some books, and that's how things happen. As you can see, this animation is pretty basic. Let me tell you, it's just this. See, this animation is pretty basic. What's happening here is car body shell, this object, is being transformed on Z location. And that's it. Similarly, every object is being transformed on this axis. This is done on X axis, X location. And maybe this is done on Z. This is done on Y location, right? This animation is pretty basic. And what I did is a clever trick. I just used 4 cameras and I cut into all those 4 cameras. As you can see, camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, and camera 4. So I don't have to animate one single camera, and I can use 4 cameras to get the animation result. And what was I trying to tell you? UV editing. Yeah. This is like the important section. Let me show you what I meant by UV editing. If I pick my tire up, and yeah, on your keyboard, right next to right shift, there is the slash key, right? That has question mark. So the slash key is for isolating any object you're working on. If I press slash, I can isolate this tire, okay? Which one is it? Rear tire left. And yeah, here it is. Also for depth, you can see. If I go in, this is very plain, right? Very smooth. But if I enable cavity here by going up on this shading menu and I press cavity, you can see these white edges. So they determine how sharp this edge is or how angular this is. And I can increase this how much I want. See, now there is a black line here. It's all visual, it's all aesthetic. You don't have to necessarily do it. And yeah, that's it. Now, if I switch to render, it might take some time. Again, we'll have to wait. We'll have to be patient. This time I'm not crashing Blender. I mean, in the meantime, it's rendering. If any one of you has any question, any query, they can ask me. I'm here. It's just Blender will take some time to render. Yep, it takes a lot of time.
Hey, I just want to say that you're very good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I came out of isolation menu, and as you can see, everything turned black. Why? Because it's loading kernels and it won't like display anything. It won't tell you the textures because it's loading themselves. It's an older project now. I haven't opened it in a week or so. So yeah, this was bound to happen. If it was a recent project, Blender would have cached everything on your disk and it would have been very, very fast. Like when I was working on this project, it was a daily thing and I was opening it up and everything was smooth, everything was fine. But things like these, yeah, they take time. And again, I can press A to select everything. And yeah, they're still there. You can see a silhouette of them, the bones, the shell, every part, like any and every part. But yeah, you cannot see the textures right now because it's loading kernel. And anything else we have? Geometry nodes. Yeah, this is a whole new thing, like even new for me. It wasn't there in Blender. It came out in 2.92 or 2.93, I guess. So it's a very new feature. I haven't explored it that much, but it's good. It's for basically randomizing and procedurally generating stuff. So yeah, and that's, I guess, the basic of it. There's one more thing I want to cover if it loads quickly. If I have anything else left. Modifiers, yeah. The last aspect that I have to explain you guys is modifier. The modifiers that we can use. Yeah. And that's it. Then the basic will be done. If you can be find enough Blender and load the kernels, please. Taking a lot of time. By the time it's loading, let me show you guys something else. Let me present another screen. So if any one of you is curious enough to start in Blender, they can download it from here, blender.org, and uh, just click on here, download Blender, and the latest one is 2.93.5. And as you can see, I'm zero point 0.5 older than this is because I haven't updated it. There is no point in updating it. But there is one more thing I can talk about. If I go to the experimental section here, this Blender 3.2 Alpha last updated on October 10th. Now, why Blender 3 is a hot topic in the community right now? Because it has Cycles X, not just the standard Cycles engine like I showed you here. Uh, yeah, Cycles engine in Blender, if you remember. So the Cycles X is very, very, very fast as compared to Cycles. It has been like X is denoting 10, and 10 is because of a decade of development. So Cycles came out 10 years ago, around 2010 or 11, I guess. And since then, there has been no update on Cycle, and now Cycles is being updated. So Cycles X is the new cool kid around the corner. And whenever Blender 3.0 releases, it will be a massive update to everyone. We'll be having faster renders and all sorts of cool features that we want. Even more stuff is coming. And recently, GSOC happens, Google's Summer of Code, and a lot of people contributed to a lot of things in Blender. It happens, it's an open project. Even you can contribute to if you want. It uses Python. And if there is any enthusiastic coder out there, any one of you, you can just try and maybe support Blender in some way or the other. Yeah. Anything else? I can show you ArtStation in general, what all people do. So these are some of the renders that others have made. As you can see, scenes and 3D models, basic sculpting. As you can see, this hippo, this was sculpted because it's not easy to directly make it, right? So you have to sculpt it, sculpt everything of its skin and then texture it. Or maybe we can look at something, maybe hard surface. Yeah, this space ridge, how was it made? As you can see, it says Blender. So yeah, this whole thing was made in Blender, rendered and textured in Blender as well. It's not a simple tool. It's very, very, very intricate and it can do a lot of stuff. You can even see these reflections and these ambient occlusion and all these hard surface details. It's very astonishing. This model is very good, like hands down it's very good. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, not everyone is using Blender here. Of course, people will be using Maya or 3ds Max. You can, of course, use Maya 3D using Autodesk. You can go up here and you can pay for their stupid price and then get this software which no one wants. But yeah, some people do use that Maya, or they may, you can even try it. There is no fault in trying it, okay? But it won't give you that much of a satisfaction that Blender can give you. The way Blender is and the interface, the look, the aesthetics of Blender, they are unmatched. You can also use 3ds Max. This is 3D Studio Max, and yeah, Max is basically nowadays people use it for architectural purposes and like professional VFX, totally high level, as you can see, Game of Thrones. So yeah, Max is right now industry standard along with Maya, but Blender is quickly gaining the pace given everything that is happening right now. And now my kernels still aren't loaded. Okay, I don't know what's wrong with Blender. Please load it, damn it. Let's just show you my other renders. Can Yeah, this is Macintosh from 1984, the original Mac, and that's how I made it. It was very basic. And let me show you one thing here. This, if you can see, this whole line is sharp. It is indeed sharp, but it's not super sharp. It is having some form of bevel in it, right? And same is with this edge, and same is with this one or this one. And these are all beveled, and bevel is a very good tool when you're using something. And this cut, the one that your screen has, was made using inset and then extrusion. I mean, why am I showing this right now? Because Macintosh, this project has been one of the most simplest ones that I've ever made. It was very basic. I did not use any other tools or any other plugins or add-ons. I just made it in vanilla Blender. Simple as that. And yeah, this Apple logo. I don't know if I can zoom it. I cannot zoom on. Leave it. This Apple logo was a bit difficult to make. I had to cut shapes and then I have to texture it on UV. Then I place it here so that I can get the original Apple logo look. These keys are nothing, just simple cubes. If you can look carefully, they are very basic cubes. I just scaled their top faces and now they are giving me the look of keys. So it's all about how you can imagine, okay? It's all about how much you can think. It's all about how far you're willing to go. And yeah, like it's all about you. This image, yeah, this image, this hello. It's not looking clear, right? It's not looking good. Why? Because again, I used trickery and while UV editing, I placed this image right behind the textures so that directly this texture is being used. And of course, this image is very old and very, very small, like maybe 25, 30 KB, and it's very small. So yeah, of course, it's going to be pixelated the more I'll stretch it. So yeah, there is that. But I added the emissive material. So you can see this screen is reflecting around. That's what emissive material does. And all of these renders that you see on my profile are done in cycles, except for this logo that I made for my friend and this hallway. Other than that, everything was done in cycles. This is my katana that I made. As you can see, the detailing. There is a catch here. It's not made on Blender. I mean, textured on Blender. It's done on Substance 3D. Because, well, Substance is a good tool for texturing, okay? And there is no denying Blender is catching up, but Substance is on a whole new different level. It has been since, I don't know, 2 decades ago, and it's meant for texturing only. If you can look carefully, let me just zoom it in. All these golden details, all these dust, grunge, all those Japanese logos, this symbol, that symbol, all those golden curvatures. It is possible in Blender, like it is indeed, but not that easily. Substance is a different story. You can just drop on your smart material, you can just define your edges, you can define your working area, you can define your meshes, and you can layer your materials. Blender does not provide layering materials that easy. So yeah, Substance has its own benefits. As you can see, this golden texture but has grunge and wear onto it. And this Sakura, I mean, sorry, the flower. And yeah, this was the animation that I made. ArtStation does not support 60 FPS. I mean, my animations are in 60. Let's just see where Blender is. Okay, finally, the kernels are here. Let's just get back to Blender as quickly as I can. Yes, I hope my screen is visible. And as you can see, यहाँ पे क्यों? Modeling. Get back to it. Come on. So can you see the noise here? You can see the static noise, right? Those boxes and dots. This is the noise I was talking about. This is the noise that optics and cycles is asking that do you want me to denoise it? Do you want me to fix it for you? And if I do it, it is good. There is no noise, but it's blurry. It's a blurry mess, and it's still in development. It's an early thing. Denoising is something no one prefers. I mean, I've heard that denoising in Unreal Engine is good, but I won't prefer optics. Please, I won't. I'm good with my noise and I can just do it. So, you can see, can you notice if I take you this close, can you notice the wear, the grunge, and the reflection of the frame on the tire? You can, right? Because Cycles is based on real time rendering. Cycles is all about how your materials should be in the real world. If I switch this all to EEVEE, it will look horrible. Trust me. It will look crap. Yeah, see, EEVEE is having a hard time loading this. I mean, it will, but it will take some time. So that's why I prefer Cycles. Now my GPU is heating up just a bit because Cycles is heavy. And let me just take you here. Let it render now for a bit. So this frame you see, this has a strong emissive red color material, and this is reflecting onto the metallic surface of the car. And this is our back part. This is the bumper. And this is the small backlight that I made. This is the axle. Let me just show you my tire. Yeah. No, not sponsored by Michelin, don't worry. And this is the dust here. And let it load. I'll just zoom it out a bit. Yeah, let it load. And you'll be able to see the rubber material along with those scratches, those dirts, those wear and tears and everything. Like, that's how a tire should be, right? And if I take you to the axle, because the axle is in the back, there'll be a lot of dust, and there it is. Now let me show you how I achieved all this. So this is my, can you come here please? Thank you. This is my rear tire, right? Yeah, rear tire. Let me just isolate this one. Bring it back to rendered view. So now I'm just isolating the tire by using the slash key on my keyboard. And you can see those scratches. And this is a big setup, okay? This texturing setup is pretty big. It's pretty complicated. I'm not going to go in the details. Of course, I cannot because it's a basic course, but I can explain it to you how it's happening, right? So there is this one node. It is called mix shader, mix, and mix. So there are 4 mix nodes and they are mixing things. So this is our base node. It is giving us that black color. This is our brown node. This is our scratches. So I'm using those scratches to determine how much of a brown should be on black. How much of brown should be on black? What is my brown? That's my dirt. What's my black? The tire material. And then there is scratch glossy. So I can make the scratches look a little bit shiny, a little bit, bright. So I can use these. I can use bump, then I can use glossy. I can do some math on my dirt and I can increase or decrease it. It's pretty complicated, trust me, but once you get the hang of it, it's totally fine. Even at times I take references from my older projects just to know that, okay, this was happening or that was happening. Let me just show you the MSA material here. Yeah, there is none. It's just this. There is no science to it. It's just very basic material. See, it is very emissive. Base color of red, emission of black, but I'm using emission node and then I'm mixing those and that's it. Now this strength determines how much emission is there. If I turn it back to, let's say 10, nah, not much. If I turn it back to 65, yeah, see, it's very bright now. I'm going to turn it to 45 just for the sake of it. And anything else? I guess the base shell. As you can see, shell is very big. There is main color, that is the black color and bluish tint that you see. Then there is dirt. If I can focus on it. Yeah, let me just focus on it. I hope you can see and I hope the stream is not that bad. See, there is scratches, right? And there is dirt too. But it is reflecting. Not that much, but it is reflecting. That's how some metals are built. They're not 100% reflective, but they are a bit reflective and at times a bit refractive. How I made into that, let me show you. See, the main color Now we are mixing between black and blue. So you can see there is a mix of black and blue, right? Very dark blue and black. And we are using Fresnel. Fresnel is basically for controlling your index of refraction, and we are mixing it using glossy. That's why you're getting this. If I turn it back to, let's say, zero point 0.8, whoa, it's very shiny. It's super shiny. I kind of like it, but nah, it's very shiny. And you can still see those scratches. See, they are very simple. The scratches, if I can show you this. This is the scratches. This is a static image. Okay, very simple, very static image. But now we are using some trickery, that is mapping node, and then we are multiplying it and using it as displacement. Now, what is displacement? It is just fake depth. How fake the depth is, you control it and you get such effects. I'm gonna press Control Z on my Fresnel, please. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, that's pretty much it about it. I can just go back to modeling and let it render everything the way it wants. This is the animation. And whenever you want to render something, let's say I want to render this frame. Which camera? Camera 3. So whenever you want to render anything, you just have to press F12. I'm pressing F12 and now it's rendering. Blender will tell you how much time it's gonna take. Yeah, it will tell you how much time it's gonna take when it loads every texture and everything. It will also tell you how much memory is being used, your system RAM. It is saying frame 137 because, of course, I'm picking it up from an animation. But if it was a standalone camera, a static camera, it won't say frame 137. It will just say like camera 005 or something, and then it will render. Hmm. You see, there is an issue with it. I'll fix it, not to worry. Shift A. I can even add a camera using Shift A. And we have another camera in the scene, camera 005. And I can press Control 0, the 0 on the numpad, not the standard 0, to enter the camera. And there's one more trick I use. Press N and then I use lock to 3D cursor in the view menu. Yeah, you can use this menu here. It comes out by pressing N. And if you want more screen space and you don't want these to hang around, you can press T. They will go. You can press N. They will come. Item is for the basic transformation. Tool is whatever tool is active. View is what you're viewing. Right now we're viewing camera. So we can lock to 3D, sorry, lock to view. And when I lock to view, wherever I'll go, this camera will go. So I want a static render, like let's say यहाँ पे, yeah. And I can disable lock to view. There is edit menu. Grease pencil is an add-on that I added, so this may not be here in your installation of Blender. Machine tools I added. JMesh is also a plugin that you can add. Easy HDRI, box cutter, and hard ops. You can just add them if you want. Like they are paid add-ons and some are free. You can add them and they'll appear here or wherever they want. And I guess I have F12 right now. It's going to take some time because it will prepare the camera, it will prepare the scene, it will prepare the HDRI, and yeah, it takes quite a lot of time. It's rendering right now, but let's see. Yeah. Okay. If I can press Control F12. Oh no, no, don't do that, don't do that. Anyways, okay, there might be some sort of issue with Blender. I don't know. This thing just doesn't work at times because it's rendering engine, okay? Cycles pretty heavy, maybe doing something. Anyways, let me open a new project now and quickly show you what I was talking about modifiers. So there are some basic modifiers you can use. Whenever you'll go on this tab, modifier tabs, you can add whatever you want. There are so many modifiers you can use, like literally so many. But yeah, not everyone will be helpful. So I'm just telling you the ones that are helpful. Let's make array. Array, as the name says, multiple. And as you can see, Now I have 6. The count is 6. And the factor you can vary if you want to vary on X. And one more trick, like if you want to vary something slowly, you can press shift. Like right now I'm moving my mouse normally, but if I press shift and move it normally, it's even slower and smoother. So I can vary the factor, and I can vary the Y factor, or I can vary the Z factor. Sorry. Yeah, you get the point, right? And right now, if I alter this cube, this is our master cube, all of these children will be altered because this is the master cube. So let me go back to edit mode by holding tab. And as you can see, I can only edit this one, right? Because he is the master cube and they are just following him. So if I press this and I press SY, they shrink. I press SX, they shrink. Along with that, their difference also because, well, it's array and the offset is relative. As you can see, relative offset. Anyways, I can just tweak them the way I want. Yeah, I can even scale them. Oof, see, it's already looking like a fin or something on a cooler. And I can go again and enable cavity. One more thing you might want to see is face orientation. Right now, all of them are facing in the wrong way. Like if something is facing you, it will be blue, and something is facing opposite, it will be red. But right now they're all red. This is the orientation of their normals. And if I go inside of them, it will be blue. Yeah, see, from the inside they are blue, and from the outside they are red. So what I can do is I can just shift N, and I'll have to apply the modifier. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Control A. Okay, rotation scale. Shift N. Now, since I applied the modifier, if you carefully noticed it, yeah, you can apply any modifier you want. Let me just disable this, please. Yeah, you can apply any modifier you want. You have to be there in object mode to apply them, and you can just apply. It's gone. Right now, the modifier is applied, and all of these children that they inherited what the parent had. So if I click on them, as you can see, they're all now editable. You can just edit, but they won't follow the master cube because, well, they're individual now. I can just do this. I can do Control A, rotation and scale. This helps you to reset the location back to 0 so that whatever transformation errors you might have, they'll be sorted. But now if I go back to edit mode, I select all of them using A and I press Shift N, this comes up, recalculate normals. So now if I press face orientation, they're all blue. See? So now if I take this model and send it to any software, let it be for Substance Painter, for texturing, or maybe a game engine like Unreal or Unity, you can have this object as is and there will be no issue because the normals are totally fine. And normals are really important when you do 3D modeling or even game dev for that matter. Let's go to another modifier that is very important and very common, bevel. See? Oh, they're all beveled now. Not expecting that, were you? So you can just decide the amount. Right now it's 0.1 meters. I can do 0.0001. Can you see the edges are sharp, but they're not that sharp, right? There is some spacing in between them. Let me show you. Okay, let me just increase the bevel. Yeah. As you can see right now, they are just one segments. And if I disable this, pointy sharp, and I enable this, not so sharp. Because you're zooming in, hence you're seeing that spacing. But if you zoom out and maybe if you're looking from somewhere far away, you won't notice, right? Because it will appear sharp, but when you will touch it or feel it and sense it, then you'll see, okay, it's not that sharp, it's not pointy. I can increase the segments I want. I've done 3, and you can see 3 segments now, 1, 2, and 3. It's very smooth, isn't it? It's very smooth. I can do right click, shade smooth, and it's even smoother now. But shading smooth, like I told you, has its own consequences. Right now, there is a shading problem. If you can see, there is this black shade going here, a bit of a black shade. Why? Because it's not done correctly. So for that, I'll have to, yeah, auto smooth and maybe do it at 45 or something. So now this black thing is gone. I mean, there was something here. I guess you haven't noticed, but it's okay. It's okay. May not be visible due to stream. And I can apply this bevel if I want. I can decrease or increase the angle. You can apply bevels in lot more ways. You can do it angle, you can do it weight or vertex, like individually or maybe like totally in sync. Now let's see another modifier, Boolean. I'll get back to it in the last. Build is not necessary. Decimate is for when you are trying to destroy the objects or polygons. Edge split, you don't need that. You can use the shear even. Geometry nodes, as I told you, is a new concept. Mask, you may not use it because it's about vertex and armature. Mirror is very important. Why? As you can see, it now mirrored my object onto the x-axis. And I can enable merge if I have some vertices, like not here, but when I was working on my Batmobile or even working on my another project. Which one was that? Sorry, the Katana. There were some issues that after mirroring that, the vertex on the edges, like on the farthermost areas, they were not colliding correctly because of mirror modifier. Like if it is a circular thing, like for example a tire. Tire is a loop, right? Of course, I was using array, but if I'm not merging those vertices, then there will be a conflict. So for that, you can just enable merge and you can enable clipping, and yeah, that's it. And I can just maybe do it on Y or maybe do it on Z. See, totally your choice. I'd like to do it on X and I'll apply it because I want to use them. Another remesh, it's very complicated. It has a different use case. Screw modifier is when you want to rotate around an axis, making a screw or making a different type of a shape that is very circular or spiral. Like maybe if I'm making a model of a DNA, you might want to use it in some format. Solidify modifier is when you have Shift A, mesh, plane. Solidify modifier is when you have a plane and you want to increase its thickness. Why you want to use that? Because you may not want to add a cube every time you have something. Okay, you can add this, and as you can see now it's thickness, and see, it is like a cube now, but on surface it's a plane. Like it is a plane and it will be a plane. If this was not there, this modifier was not there, this was a plane, right? But this is there, so the transformations are done according to the geometry. And if I, again, like I told you in the previous section, if I want to use this completely, I'll have to apply it. And sorry, object mode, apply it. And now there was one vertex, you remember here, right? Now there will be one here, because it is one single mesh. See? So this is what solidify modifier does. Let's get back to subdivision surface. We call it subsurface. I'm sorry, bad habit. Now what it does is I can see, you see what happens here? See, 1, 2, and 3. It's now so smooth that you will not notice the bevel until you're super close. And what it does is, if I can show you the optimal display, I have to go to wireframe. Also, I'm sorry, there was one last section I missed. This is the normal standard object mode. This is your shading mode. This was the rendering mode that we used to render. This is the wireframe mode. You can see how your mesh is, how many polygons are there, how many edges, vertices, faces you want. I usually work in wireframe when there is like, some sort of deformation, because other than that, there is no use for me personally to always go to wireframe, but you can use it. See? This is your mesh. I can press 1 to see the vertex mode, 2 for object, and 3 for faces. And yeah, so let me get back to object mode. And if I disable this and then I go back to wireframe, there isn't much, you see. It's very simple. And why is that? Because, well, it divides your mesh. It divides your mesh like multiple times. See? As you can see, subdivision, basically making more and more and more divisions on your surface. Subdivision surface modifier, just as the name says. I like to keep it because why not? It's a good modifier. I'll apply it. It's very heavy right now. I can enable statistics. Yeah. As you can see now, I have 150K triangles on this mesh already. Though it's nothing, it's totally senseless. But because of subdivision, I have these many triangles. Why would you want to think about triangles and faces and like polygons overall? Not much. Like you cannot have more than maybe 3 or 4 million, because if you do, then Substance Painter might crash. And yeah. And also, if you're making a game asset, for example, or anything like that, then you'll have to keep in mind that your polygons, your triangles, your vertices all are in control, so that the engine can handle and the project, the overall asset is optimized, well optimized, I should say. And yeah, for VFX, none of this matters. For VFX, none of this matters because those people, they have high-end machines. They can pretty much render anything they want. So doesn't matter if it's 1 million or 2 million polygons for them. They'll just crunch it easily. All of those VFX studios you can think of, ILM and Pixar. Let's move on to some other modifiers. Triangulate is when you want to triangulate your mesh. Just a second. As you can see, all of these are quads. What is quad? Quad, as the name suggests, four. So these faces have 4 points. If there is a triangle here, there has to be a triangle somewhere. I mean, there must be. See, I'm going inside the mesh. So now I can press 5. I'm in orthographic and I won't go inside the mesh and I can see, okay, here we are. There has to be a triangle somewhere, yeah. Somewhere. No, there is no. Luckily, we don't have a triangle. It's okay. But at times, when you cut the geometry in some ways, you might get triangles. So you want to use triangulate to have triangles, because you can have quads, but you can have triangles, and they are much better at times because Maya, for example, or Unreal Engine, they might prefer triangulation. So you can triangulate your mesh if you want. Volume to mesh, it's a whole separate discussion. I'm not gonna go into that. It's just for caustics, like you can have smoke and other stuff in that. Weld modifier is just like auto merge. Just a second, auto merge. See, you can see they have same symbols. Weld, two dots and one dotted line. Auto merge. They do the same thing. Auto merge is you have to do it manually, and weld will do it automatically for you because it's a modifier. Armature is when you want to add an armature and work with it. Um, these are like not that useful for you. Shrink wrap is when you want to, wrap a physical property of one object onto another. For example, surface deform, wave, warp. They are very complicated. You can use wave when you want to make like a water wave using a plane, for example. Cloth is for, these are physics. As you can see, this is a column physics. Collision, dynamic paint, explode, fluid, ocean, particle system, particle instance. They are very heavy. I'm being honest, they are very heavy to run. They are very heavy to check. But once you get them done, they are rewarding. They are super rewarding.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yes, someone was saying something. I'll continue. Okay, so what I can do, the last modifier that I haven't told you about is Boolean and wireframe. I'm just gonna go into that. I'll add a cube. I'll increase its size and I'll pick my second cube. I'll bring it here. And I want to do one more thing. To duplicate, I forgot to tell you the very, very basic application of keys. Shift D. It's very common. Shift D is even used in Photoshop. Shift and Control D. It's used in After Effects. It's used in, I guess, I don't know, hit film and stuff. So yeah, it is a very common shortcut for you. Shift D and you have a copy. You can use your mouse to keep it wherever you want, and you can just leave it as is. I'm gonna move it here, G, and press Y. And yeah, I can even hide it for now because I don't want to use it. So I'll bring these fins and I can rename them because no one is stopping me from renaming them. So I'll go here and I can right click and, or I can press F2 if there is no right click at times. I'll name it fins. I can make this as F2 base. You use F2 in Windows to rename, right? So it's nothing different. And you don't want to press Shift D, it's totally fine. You can press Control C, Control V. It will do the same. And GY here, I guess. Yeah. SX. There we go. I can press 1 to come in the front view. And they are here. I can go by pressing 3, I can go in right view and G and Y. So they are inside, right? So what Boolean modifier does is it will perform Boolean operations. And you can perform Boolean operations on almost anything and everything you want. Let me just add Boolean. So what you want to do is take this and then select the second object. So you can either use this dropper tool, and it is telling me see object fins. So I can select it here, and now fins is selected. Oh, it went away. Why? Because we did it the wrong way. For that to happen, we have to flip everything. So I'll add Boolean here. I'll select the object base here, and I'll do difference. Something happened. And one more caveat, this Boolean operation here is pretty slow. Blender has been very sluggish when it comes to Boolean operation. I don't personally prefer it this way. I use another tool for Boolean operations, or you can use some more add-ons that are paid or free, but I just wanted to show you. And there we go. Something happened and it was wrong. Typical behavior of Boolean. I cannot even do anything about it. I've applied mirror. Yeah. So what I do is there is this free add-on that I use. It is called JMesh Tools. It is very free and like simply very free, almost simply. And you can just download it and go to your edit preferences, simply add-ons, install wherever you have downloaded, like it's your downloads folder, then it's there. Click on it and then click on install. It will be installed. Since it's JMesh Tools we are talking about, so it will come up here. And again, you can access this menu by pressing N. So I'll go to JMesh and I'll pick this. I'll remove this. I'll pick this here and then I'll select this here and I can references. Sorry, where is it? JMesh Tools. Okay, is this not working by some means? There is another thing we can try, bool. Yeah, it's here, no? There is this add-on that is like built into Blender, like let me tell you, Node Wrangler, Node Wrangler and Node Arrange. They all of these add-ons, most of these add-ons, they come built in Blender. You just have to tick and enable them, like simple as that. And like for example, Carver, one more add-on. As you can see, Carver, it's native, and then we have Bool tool, it's native. But then there is hard ops, it is not. And self fracture is also native. So you can easily, do these things. You have all of these items. Yeah, there you go, Bool tool. This is the Bool tool I was talking about. The one that I just enabled, this is the one. And if I press this and if I click on difference, it's gonna wait for a while. Okay, something is wrong. Okay, see, it happened, but somehow it happened in reverse. That's how Bool tool is at times. I don't know, I can even slice it, right? Yeah, I can slice it. Okay, so there is something wrong with this mesh. I can use brush boolean maybe. Yeah, see. Okay, so there is something wrong with the mesh because this whole mesh is being treated as one single cube, which it should not be. So this is the part of learning. This is the part of Blender, and yeah, you won't get everything right in the first place, but if you do get it right, yeah, it's good. I've applied the scale and everything. I can just zero out and I can try it again. Okay, it's not happening. Fine, leave it. It's just that Bool tool will subtract whatever you are picking, and I can just bring the second cube. I can just do it. If I can now subtract them. Yeah, see? Poof, I was able to prove my point. Maybe that geometry somehow got okay, now I know why it wasn't happening. Okay, I've already fixed it, don't worry. So, like, they were two native cubes, okay, with no modifiers, no nothing. The fault that I just realized was you have to have equal number of modifiers. If you remember on that fin object, we had a subdivision, we had bevel, we had everything. And on this cube, there was nothing. So that's why Boolean modifier was failing to, apply all those cuts because it was not there. If I do this, and if I can apply subdivision, I can bevel, first of all, bevel, yeah. 001, I can apply, I can add subdivision surface modifier, I can apply, I'm sorry, duplicate, apply, and I can do shade smooth, auto smooth, and hopefully it should work. Come on, leave it. Okay, there has to be something. This mesh is totally different than this mesh, and yeah, it's one of the things we have to tackle. Anyways, I guess this basic session was good for you, hopefully. I'll just stop sharing my screen now. And yeah, that's it. There is not much in it. That is like all the basics I could have told you about Blender. That's how thing goes, and that's how Blender is. That's how 3D modeling is. And it's almost 6, so we can over the session. Thanks for joining in, guys. And if there is anything about 3D, any doubt, and if you are in DSC or not even in DSC, if you want to contact me, you can just contact me. And thank you, Mudit. Thank you. And yeah, I guess that's it. Stay safe, guys, and thanks for tuning in. I'm ending the session, or you can just leave. Thanks.